Hey guys, I'm Shay, and today I'm going to be doing my first ever bookshelf tour. So with this still being pretty early in January, I do still have a lot of books on their way, so I guess you'll just see them in the book hauls that I do, and maybe I'll do another bookshelf tour at the end of the year, and you'll be able to see them then too. So without further ado, let's get started. So on the first half of my top shelf, I have completed series. So to begin with, I have the first book in the Midnighters trilogy by Scott Westerfeld called The Secret Hour. Book 2 of the Midnighters trilogy is Touching Darkness, and then book 3 in the Midnighters trilogy is Blue Noon. Up next, I have the Shattered trilogy by Tahereh Mafi. So the first book is Shatter Me. Then I have the novella that goes between the first and second books, Unite Me. Then the second book in the trilogy, Unravel Me. And then the third and final book, Ignite Me. Next up, I have what I think is called The Last Survivors Quartet by Susan Beth Pfeffer. The first book is Life as We Knew It. The second book is The Dead and the Gone. The third book, which sadly doesn't have a dust jacket, is This World We Live In. And the last one is The Shade of the Moon. And then up next I have the Delirium trilogy by Lauren Oliver. So book 1 is Delirium, book 2 is Pandemonium, and book 3 is Requiem. Okay, and now for the second half of my top shelf, I have the Divergent trilogy by Veronica Roth. The first one is Divergent, the second is Insurgent, and the third and final is Allegiant. After that, I have the Matched trilogy by Ali Condi. The first book is Matched, the second is Crossed, and the third is Reached. On top of that, I have the Maze Runner trilogy along with its prequel, all these by James Dashner. Book 1 is The Maze Runner, book 2 is The Scorch Trials, book 3 is The Death Cure, and then book 4, or I guess book .5, is The Kill Order. On the second shelf, I have more completed series, and so the first one I have here is the 11 Thumps series by Obert Sky. Book 1 is 11 Thumps and the Gateway to Fu. Book 2 is 11 Thumps and the Whispered Secret. Book 3 is 11 Thumps and the Eyes of the Want. Book 4 is 11 Thumps and the Wrath of Ezra. And Book 5 is 11 Thumps and the Ruins of Alder. Up next, I have the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. Book 1 is The Hunger Games, Book 2 is Catching Fire, and Book 3 is Mockingjay. Then I have the Hybrid Chronicles by Kat Zhang. Book 1 is What's Left of Me, Book 2 is Once We Were, and Book 3 is Echoes of Us. On the second half, I have more trilogies, and the first one is the Splintered trilogy by A.G. Howard. So Book 1 is Splintered, and it's beautiful. Book 2 is Unhinged, also very beautiful. And finally, Ensnared, also extremely, extremely beautiful. Next, I have the Lux Quartet by Anna Godberson. Book 1 is The Lux, Book 2 is Rumors, Book 3 is Envy, and this is just the dust jacket because I'm currently reading it, so it's kind of floppy. And Book 4 is Splendor. And the last series I have on this shelf is the Chemical Garden trilogy by Lauren DeStefano. Book 1 is Wither, Book 2 is Fever, and Book 3 is Sever. The next shelf is the rest of my completed series and unfinished series and trilogies. So the first series that I have is the Twilight Saga by Stephanie Meyer. Book 1 is Twilight, Book 2 is New Moon, Book 3 is Eclipse, and Book 4 is Breaking Dawn. Alright, next to those I have the Monstrumologist series by Rick Yancey. Book 1 is The Monstrumologist, Book 2 is The Curse of the Wendigo, Book 3 is The Isle of Blood, and Book 4 is The Final Descent. Next I have the first and last book in the Theater Illuminata trilogy by Lisa Manchev. The second one is in the mail still, so it'll get here at some point, hopefully soon. So book 1 is Eyes Like Stars, and book 3 is So Silver Bright. So next I have the first 2 books in the Darkest Minds trilogy by Alexandra Bracken. Book 1 is The Darkest Minds, and book 2 is Never Fade. And then book 3 is In the Afterlight, and it's on its way, but I don't have it yet. After that are the first 2 books in the Asylum trilogy by Madeline Rue. Book 1 is Asylum, and the second book is Sanctum. And the third book, Catacomb, is I think coming out in November of this year. Next up is the first book in the False Memory trilogy, False Memory by Dan Krokos. Next I have the first book in the Iron Skin trilogy by Tina Connolly. Then I have The Evolution of Mara Dyer, which is the second book in the Mara Dyer trilogy by Michelle Hodkin. Then I have the first and last book in the Uglies trilogy by Scott Westerfeld. Book 1 is Uglies, and book 3 is Specials. And Pretties is actually coming in the mail to me, so I just don't have it yet. And then Extras is like a companion novel for the trilogy. This next shelf is just more incomplete trilogies. So the first one is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. Then I have the first 2 books in the Pure trilogy by Juliana Baggett. Pure is book 1, and book 2 is Fuse. Then I have Scarlet, the second book in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I don't know why I don't have the first one yet. It's coming in the mail, but I haven't gotten it yet. Then I have Blackout by Robison Wells, In the After by Demetria Lunetta, Incarceran by Catherine Fisher, the third book in the Ruby Red trilogy, Emerald Green by Kirsten Gear. Then I have the first 2 books in the Tempest trilogy, I think, by Julie Cross. So book 1 is Tempest, and book 2 is Vortex. Then I have my fun empty boxes. So I have the Maze Runner box set, which is up farther, and then I have my John Green box set, which is down the shelf. And then on this other side, I have, I guess, more incomplete trilogies. So first I have Hunger, the first book in the Riders of the Apocalypse quartet by Jackie Morse Kessler. And ironically, this is the one that my dog got her chomps on. Apparently she was hungry, ha ha ha. It's not that funny. Next I have the first 2 books in the Monument 14 series by Emmy Laybourne. Book 1 is Monument 14, and book 2 is Sky on Fire. Then I have Alice in Zombieland, which is the first book in the White Rabbit Chronicles by Gina Showalter. Next I have Some Quiet Place by Kelsey Sutton, which is the first book in the Some Quiet Place trilogy, I think. I think it's going to be a trilogy. Then I have Variant, which is the first book in, I think, just the Variant trilogy by Robison Wells. Then I have Reboot by Amy Tintera. And then finally I have the first 2 books in the Unicorn Chronicles by Bruce Koval, Into the Land of the Unicorns and Song of the Wanderer. On this next shelf down is just more random books. I think they're all standalones, or most of them are standalones. So the first book I have is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, then Best Loved Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen, then I have Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld, then Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Other Stories by Lewis Carroll, then Being by Kevin Brooks, then iBoy by Kevin Brooks, then Strands of Bronze and Gold by Jane Nickerson, and this one I actually heard might become a trilogy, but not so much like a trilogy about the same people, but maybe in the same world, I think. Then I have Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, then 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher, then The Last Domino by Adam Meyer, and January Black by Wendy S. Russo. Next I have all of my John Green books. I have Looking for Alaska, An Abundance of Catherines, Paper Towns, and The Fault in Our Stars. After that, I have The House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer, then My So-Called Death by Stacy J, then I have Just in Case by Meg Rosoff, Kavik the Wolf Dog by Walt Morey, then I have Horror Store by Grady Hendrix, which is awesome because it looks like an IKEA catalog. Then I have a 3-book collection of some of the Spine Chillers mysteries by Fred E. Katz, and they're actually really similar to Goosebumps books. Alright, and for the final shelf, I'm a total dork, but I have all of my self-published books, or my indie author books, along with my nonfiction books. So the first 2, funnily enough, are actually the same book, and I wrote it when I was in, I think, 10th grade. It is called Undying. So there are my 2 versions of it. The first one is just a stock cover photo from the website that I had it printed on, and the second one is a cover that my brother designed. Up next, I have my grandpa's books, autobiographies. So there they are. The first one is Gubbins, the second is Gubbins 2, and the third is Gubbins Reloomed. And I guess my grandpa's dad actually used to call him Gubbins. Next, I have 3 books in the River trilogy by B.D. Peterson. Book 1 is River, Ogala's Conspiracy. Book 2 is River Gunslinger. And book 3 is River, the Danbury Effect. Next, I have Alien Dig, Secret of the Cubes by B.D. Peterson. Then I have Jewel. Then I have Mind Birth, also by B.D. Peterson. Then I have Dimension 53. Next is My Name is Wicked. And finally, Picture Perfect. All these were by B.D. Peterson. Next I have The Falling of Love by Marissa Oldham. It's the first book in the Falling series. Then I have Out of Oregon by Tim Peterson. Then I have Shattered Grace, which is the first book in the Fallen from Grace series by Kay Ann Rains. Then I have Second Chances by Patrick Heffernan, and Freshman Fangs by Heather Ann Richards. So that completes all of my self-published authors. Next I will get into my nonfiction. Most of these are Christian books. I think all of them are. Almost all of them. So the first one is Heaven by Randy Alcorn. The second is The Hole in Our Gospel by Richard Stearns. Third is Captivating by John and Stacey Eldridge. Then I have Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. Then this next one isn't actually a fiction or a nonfiction book. It just has a big old hole in it to store stuff in. So I just needed a place to put it. So it goes there. Next is Lists to Live By, the first collection by, it looks like a few authors. Alice Gray, Steve Stevens, and John Van Diest. Then I have Blue Light Jazz by Donald Miller. Then Through Painted Deserts by Donald Miller. Then I have Boy Meets Girl by Joshua Harris. I Kiss Dating Goodbye by Joshua Harris. Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And finally, Heaven is for Real by Todd Burpo. And I haven't actually really read many of these nonfiction books. The only ones that I've really read were the 2 Donald Miller books, Captivating and Wild at Heart. And I really liked those. I haven't read the rest of them yet though.